All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And again, thank you for coming today. I know that the last 2 weeks since I spoke, holy cow, things came flying at us left and right. I've been trying to keep up with the noise and send things out. I'm going to kind of go through some of that stuff today and how it impacts your quality work that you're going to be doing for this year and next year, and some of the opportunities you have to even have a stronger quality plan than we thought we were going to do. All right, so first of all, congratulations, you've made it through May, and you're almost over half the year's gone if you think about it, and it's amazing to me how quick it has been. Also, just know that you're going to make it through summer. We're going to do this fine. And for those of you that have been part of this group and working diligently, you're so far ahead of so many people across the state. I've been talking to a lot of facilities across the state, and folks are really behind. So for those of you that are on top of things and making progress, you're way ahead of a lot of other communities. Wanted to kind of bring around some of the terminology that we've been seeing, and just think of how your vocabulary has grown, and all the words that we didn't even use 15, 18 months ago, and the things that we're being held accountable for. So our industry has grown in leaps and bounds. So what's kicking? Well, OSHA got an emergency order, and they are now dead set right in the middle of all of the assisted living businesses, whether you're private pay, Medicaid, mixed, it doesn't really matter, because you're licensed under the state of Colorado as a business, and because you're licensed under the health department as an entity to practice, OSHA is now in your life. So one of the things that they're also pushing is to make sure that we are fully vaccinated, all our residents and all our staff, and they're in the middle of the discussions and the outcomes if an outbreak happens at your facility. So we've gotten, there's been a little more clarity on isolation rules. The big discussion that's been going on nationally is stigmatization in long-term care in general, whether it's group homes, host homes, assisted living, nursing homes, or even staff coming from agencies serving people in their homes, is the unvaccinated population and what that's really going to look like. And I suspect after that court win in Texas, where Texas Hospital won, and that they kicked it out, saying that employees do not have the right not to be vaccinated, I think the rules are even going to start coming out faster and more towards the business side of it to protect your residents and the people you serve. So like I said, OSHA got the emergency rule, and I have sent it out to a lot of people. If you don't have it, you can email me and I'll be glad to give you the copy. Please put this in section 5 of your COVID notebook. And there's, in the embedded website, there is a great mapping tool that I really like. And I would encourage you to find that on their website and print that. And so if you have an outbreak, that's when you need to worry about OSHA. As long as you're passing state survey inspections, which we're going to talk about some of the little things right now, OSHA probably will not show up in your life. I don't think they have time to do audits on the facilities that are functioning well. I think they're going to concentrate on the facilities that crash and burn. So remember that OSHA is all about the workers, okay? So the 3 things that they're really focused on is, what information are you putting out there? What education are you giving? And are you getting signed documentation from your staff that they've received the information, they've attended the classes, they are competent in the areas that are important, and that they are able to execute? One of the things that drove this, and it's been going on for months, is that surveyors come in, and the first thing the staff do, because they're not doing the right thing, is they throw you under the bus and they say, we were never trained. Nobody told me about this. I don't understand this. I never got training. I've heard quite a few different scenarios around that. And so we're tightening up the noose. So we're not only are we doing the trainings, they're going to sign a training documentation sheet. And then if they have to go back to training, they're going to, have to go back to training because they're not doing the right thing. I've been out and about for the last couple of weeks at some of the small homes, and staff definitely are not getting it, and they think it's over, and they have stopped all of their isolate or infection control processes. We haven't stopped everything, just some things. So one of your decisions you're going to have to decide as a business owner is the mandated vaccination program, and including yourself if you have not done it. So like I said, with this class action suit being thrown out, there's another one brewing, I think out of the Carolinas. I don't think it'll gain any traction either. There's not a lot of public sentiment to support it. It should be interesting to see what happens and how much more power OSHA will get out of this. Okay. So this is a snapshot of the website and what it looks like and where you want to go, and it's Safety and Health Administration Enforcement. So this is the website that I highly encourage you to look at. Okay. So the surveys, isolation surveys, are really concentrating on not fully vaccinated staff and residents. And if you have a major outbreak, a major could be more than two, either staff, residents, or combination of the two, then a major outbreak more than likely will provoke a desk audit from OSHA and an on-site survey, either from your county or from the state. Or all of them might show up at your door. Depends how bad the outbreak is, and if you have filed all your EM resources on time, that you have due diligence in all the areas you've been asked to participate in. And if you haven't, then they may all show up because they're going to want to try to figure out why you haven't. There's still some facilities across the state that have done literally nothing. And so I keep waiting to hear if it's going to get publicized or not. I do know one facility was basically told either they're immediately catch themselves up or they close their facility by the end of the month. So like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how all this floats out. Now you do have a vaccination plan. We've been working on it for a little while. We got them in, a bunch of people was really good to me and got them in early. And I was able to talk to the coordinator of the program down at the health department and what she needed to hear and what she was looking for. So we made a couple of tweaks and I think we've got it. If you get any feedback from the department that will help the group, please share it with us. So far, I expect we will get some additional guidance and feedback of what they want on the vaccination plan. But so far, we have found the language and what they want to hear. Okay. So you want to be in the know of what's going on. Unfortunately, we have the Delta virus in Colorado. It hit Mesa County, and Mesa County's on a really, hour by hour watchdog, and they have really low vaccination rates as a county, and then high virulent rates. So you can, when you go to this website, you can check your own county and just see how you're doing. And those variants, if you type in, what those are, it'll tell you. And so the thing that they're worried about on the Delta one is, and it's a very fascinating cell. I've seen a couple of micro pictures of it. It has two different surfaces. So in the regular COVID, you remember it's got horns. And so the horns would lock on to a good cell and send their poison over through that little yellow thing that pops out and then contaminates cells. Well, the Delta variant not only has the horn change, it kind of looks like a rose to me. So it has a little tiny center and then it branches out in like a rose petals do. But in between the horns is two new growth outlets. So literally the horns, once, it's kind of like the mammoth bug that once it mates, it dies. That's kind of how I'm looking at this Delta virus. So once that horn attaches, sends out whatever it's going to send out to contaminate good cells, then the other two are growing like leaps and bounds, and the whole cell doesn't die, just that horn dies. So like I said, it's fascinating. So I know the epidemiologists are very hopeful so far, and in Europe, they've proven this already. So it hit like in different sectors of Italy, and because they had high vaccination rates, it died out fairly fast, and they were able to tamper it down. If we can do the same thing in the US and tamper it down and don't get out of control, I hope that we don't end up going back to where we were 7, 8 months ago. Like I said, I'm very worried because we have some counties and some populations of people that are still holding out and refusing to vaccinate. And that's where they're seeing the major outbreaks. So on the vaccination plan, if you have any problems with it, it's already due. So if you don't have it in, you're out of compliance. If you need help with it, I've got some language that seems to be okay. And again, we'll tweak as we need to tweak. But the highlight is unvaccinated. So if you have a resident, like a new resident comes in and they're not vaccinated, then they have to wear a mask outside their room. They have to eat solely by themselves, and they can't join activities in the congregate area. So they don't get the same privileges as our vaccinated group. They're not allowed visitors just to come. They have to have an appointment. The visitor has to check in, wear a mask, and they're limited to 30 minutes. You have to escort them in and out. So the old rules that you've been doing remain for all unvaccinated residents. So as quickly as you can get your residents vaccinated, please do so. Remember, it's fully vaccinated, so 2 weeks after the second, either Moderna or Pfizer, or 14 days after the Johnson & Johnson. Now, J&J against this Delta is not having a good track record. It's only about 67% efficient, where Pfizer and Moderna is in the 90s. So as much as I was praying that J&J would work, I'm not, it's still not where it needs to be. On your staff, if they are not vaccinated, they get to live their work life like they have done for the last 8 months. So they have to wear mask source control to the facility. They immediately go to a wash area. They wash their face, their hands, they dry, they put their mask on, their initial mask on, and they glove. And if they're doing patient care, they wear gowns, and they're in a mask and a face shield for the whole shift. And so this is the part that people, don't understand. The face shield's not optional. It is a mandatory, and it's mandatory through OSHA and the state. So these unvaccinated staff people get to wear full PPE all day. And then the fully vaccinated staff, and if the whole house is vaccinated, then we're down to gloves, and we only wear a gown when we are doing patient care like we've always done. And so that's why it's so important to have the full vaccinated facilities. Is you get some normal, you get to open your doors, you get to have visitors, you get to have volunteers, you get to bring music back, you get to eat together, and have congregate eating, you get to have activities together. It's just so much nicer than the mixed bag. So again, we've been talking about this, and in the OSHA vision is, what are you doing to protect your staff? In CDPHE and your county, it's, what are you doing to protect your residents? And so there are two viewpoints, but on the same page. Okay. I want to bring up, some of you are not aware, because I sure got surprised by it, on the critical incident report. I was under the impression when it came out that it was for the single entry point agencies and PACE and some of these other folks, that they filled them out and sent them into the state, and came back around that again they kind of stuck it at us, and then we have to get it to these other agencies, and then they tell the state they got them, and then the state checks it. So they do a crosswalk to check to make sure that you've put an occurrence report in if you filed a critical incident report. Even the PACE program, if you have something go down with a PACE client, send them the critical incident report. And like I said, it's going to be interesting to see, because I haven't heard directly from PACE if they're going to do them or they're expecting you to do them and get them to them, which I'm expecting the latter. Please have the current occurrence manual downloaded on your desktop. So this new thing, there is a mandatory training. If you accept any HCBS products, you have to go on the HCPUF website, and the training's due, and you have to have the certificate by the 25th. And so I haven't taken it yet. It's on my agenda for tomorrow to go see what they're talking about and to see what else I'm missing. But I don't, like I said, I don't know definitively how PACE is going to handle this, but it is an HCBS product. So if you take anything in the HCBS world, I highly, please go take this training and get it under your belt. For those of you that are private pay only, I still would go take this training because you need to understand this tool. And then if you do have a situation such an elder abuse, especially exploitation, or you have a sexual assault, or you have a major injury in elder abuse and you have to report it. Remember that the ombudsman has to be notified, and a lot of times you have to notify Adult Protective Services as well. So the more you understand about this tool, even if you never have to use it and you're lucky enough never have to fill the thing out, the better. Okay? So in chapter 7, for those of you that missed, the new rules came out this week. So change out your chapter 7 in your Bible on your desktop. And if you are having trouble finding it, let me know and I'll send it to you. And so these rules are in section 5, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Like I said, here's the training sites, what it looks like. And I'm just saying, please think about it, because again, if you have a wacky thing happen and you have somebody die that was unexpected, or you have somebody that hurt somebody in the facility, resident to resident, and they're arrested and incarcerated, it's a critical incident report. So like I said, the more you, at least if you know that it might be something you have to do, you know where to find it, you've got it bookmarked, and at least you have some understanding. Okay. We got some more memos, okay? And so this is one that I wanted to give you. And so, like I said, I called the department as soon as, and I, just trying to make sure that I was giving out the right information. And what Cheryl told me is about the crosswalking that they're mandated and they're being QA'd on, so that they have to check to make sure. And so a situation that happened, a facility did not file an occurrence report that was required. And so the department went in and wanted to see all their incident reports. And so that was very concerning to me, because an incident report is an internal document. And they gave their whole incident book to the department. So I'm not sure how that's going to tease out at this point. And I've had a couple of conversations with attorneys that work in our industry about incident reports and what do we need to do in the business side to protect incident reports. And so one of them is to change putting names in to employee numbers and resident numbers is one thing they recommended highly, and that we don't have names out there. Because again, if you choose to give the department your incident book and they take it away out of your facility, you have nothing. So that's why I said I have grave concerns about CDPHE walking out the door with your incident reports. But they are doing cross checks on occurrence reports. And if they find out that you didn't file one correctly, that's an immediate jeopardy issue. And so they can make your life crazy. Okay. So let's get back a little bit more to business so we can work back on quality. All right, so source control. In your COVID quality, you're going to have to make a decision about N95s. They're super expensive. They've got to be fitted. You got to have the right ones. If they are ill-fitting, or they're the wrong size, they're useless. So I am stuck personally. I want to keep just the blue surgical mask. And so one of the things that's important is that any of your workers that is not fully vaccinated, they must wear source control from when they get ready to leave. They have to discard in an approved bin where it goes their mask. They have to put on a mask that they're going to wear from the door that they leave to their car. What they do with their car going out the door, we don't have any control on, but actually the recommendation is that they wear source control anytime they're in the community doing anything, regardless of what the community standards are. Good luck at getting that enforced. But it is what we're going to see is you're going to see either a POC request for training on this, or you're going to get a 999. But this is one of the new things, is that if they are not fully vaccinated, they must leave your facility. And again, drop the one that's for the facility into an approved bin, put on their own. They got to wash, and then they can leave. Also, and for many, many years, and I can tell you in my half a century of practice, I don't know how often I worked sick, probably, more than I ever should have. So if you ever had a cold or the flu or whatever, and if you weren't too sick, you just work anyway. And those days are over. And so if they have a fever, or if they're having any symptoms of being sick or feeling bad, you got to send people home. And we've got some new labor laws around fully vaccinated and unvaccinated, whether or not you have to pay. So remember back when COVID broke out, we were being held kind of accountable to pay them for off time. Not so much anymore. So the labor laws have changed a little bit about what you're obligated to pay above and beyond your normal sick PTO. All right, so quality can be looked at in two venues. So we've been talking a lot about resident services for months. I also want you to remember that you have a business quality plan. And another term for it out in the business world is cost of goods and services. So your building, the rent, the insurance, the cost of unemployment, the cost of workman's comp, all of those are goods and services. Those are quality plans in the business sector. The quality that I really put my finger on is resident services. So it's, section 8 through 24 of the regs is where I put a lot of energy into, and to make sure that we are coordinating, educating, information, providing protective oversight, and that we're consistent in our messaging. So some other things that I want to bring back around and get you to think about is make sure you got the new resident rights. I did take time yesterday and take the new resident rights that were posted, redid the handout and set them to as many people as I could think of. So you could just print and post. You do need to make sure that it's in your documentation, that you have in your resident meeting, that you go over them. I would get the ombudsman to help you with that. And that you have a staff meeting and you review them and get a signature training, either on the single topic or a special signature training that you want to do on it. I don't really care as long as you capture it. And because again, I don't want any of your staff to throw you under the bus saying, oh, you weren't trained on resident rights. And then remember that you have an annual elder abuse training. So I have a 3-part elder abuse that I've done for people in your level of management. And then I have a elder abuse training for direct care staff. And I also have a person-centered training for direct care staff. So those are available, and right now I'm doing them community by community so that we can actually have conversations. But those are annual trainings that you have to do. I also want to remind you on house rules, you got to pretty much throw out what you have and go back into chapter 7 on what you must cover, and then get rid of as much stuff as you can because you're violating resident rights. And so the, Mother May I and all of the rules that we've put into place for over the last decade pretty much are not reasonable, or and you will be held for violating resident rights because you're putting on too many house rules. So I just recommend that your house rules mirror exactly what's in chapter 7, and I've added 2 to the house rules. So one is we treat each other with kindness and respect, and that we work forward on that. And the second house rule is that we honor all public health orders and state guidance regarding COVID-19 until it is completed and closed. And so pretty much been keeping that up with that mindset, because again, you can get house rules to way too overloaded and create a lot of chaos. Now, when you're looking at house rules, part of your QA, and this is on your business side, okay, your service agreements that residents sign on admission and yearly cannot have anything different than what's posted. So I've seen some service agreements and they're ridiculous, and they need to pretty much be put away, and you need a new service. I was working on this before COVID really kicked us in the butt. So Colorado has a rent agreement. It's a mandatory by statute rent agreement and lease agreement. So either month to month, or you can do 6 months leases or 1 year leases or 5 year leases. That's up to you. But they're very defined about if you fail to pay your rent or your petty portion if you're on HCBS of some sort. And so that you can evict for that as a standalone. It's in the regulations in Chapter 7. Behaviors on the other end, though, go in your service agreement. You do not have the right to put rate restrictions in. You don't have any authority on HCBS clients. They have to be done before they come to your house, and they have to be done by their case managers and get them through. And they have a major vetting system. They have to be reviewed by a group and agreed upon. In the behavioral health world, they have a whole thing they have to do, and so the case managers can't do it independently. They have to go through a vetting and a group process and a sign off in their settings as well. So rate restrictions are super hard. And one of the ones that I've been seeing lately is that you can't just give 2 cigarettes an hour unless it's in the behavioral plan before they come into your facility, or it is instituted or initiated by the BHO or the mental health center for safety reasons. So the other thing, like in smoking, you have to do a safety assessment. So if you say, well, they can't have cigarettes or a lighter because they're not safe, you have to have a safety assessment. And so the question that came back just about a month ago to the facility is, why do you have this resident? You can't provide protective oversight. They need to be in a place that they can have 24-hour supervision for smoking, no matter what time of day it is. So like I said, we've got some new challenges at us, and figuring this stuff out and working together so that we have a good program. Want to also remind you guys that you must have a posted grievance policy and a tool. It must be in your service agreement with your residents, and they need to know how to access it. And we talked a little bit a while back about grievances. And so one of the things that I looked at, there was a community, and they have a program that really spoke to me. So no matter who takes the grievance, whether it's a cook, the housekeeper, activity director, they sit down with the resident, or they'll write it up for the resident and at least get it started. And then they're responsible to follow it through and it's be reviewed in the grievance group for that facility, and that not any one person, has the right to nix it. And so, we get complaints all day long, right, in our industry. And so you have to define, is this a complaint that you can fix really quick, or is it a grievance because you can't fix it really quick, and it's going to take some other people's energy and interaction to make a difference. So be very clean in your grievance policy and how you want the staff to react to it. And you need to talk about grievances just like you do resident rights. How do you voice a grievance? How do you get follow-up? What's the timeline for getting it? And then, so like, let's say something's been bugging somebody for months on end. And so again, this resident had a surveyor, told the surveyor, nobody ever listens to my complaints. I filed a grievance 6 months ago and they never got back to me. And so it's that same circle. And you've got to have a really strong grievance and complaint policy. Same thing with resident meetings, get them back, get them going. We got really behind on them. Make sure you're keeping minutes and that you have that filed. When you have family meetings, remember those are family driven, and follow the rules in Chapter 7 about family council and what that looks like, and how do you keep the minutes and how do you post those minutes. I'm going to assume that many of you are going to stay on Zoom meetings for family or have a hybrid. And so you'll just need to make sure that your information is updated, your information to your families is updated, and that you give them notice of the meeting and attendance time. So families have the right to have, go for the big family voice and say, we want to meet at 6 or 7 o'clock on a Thursday p.m. And we have to accommodate that. So again, be very careful, look at it carefully of what you're doing and make sure that you have all of those cut up. So watch for smoking, watch your house rules, make sure you put the new resident rights up, make sure that you've got your grievance policies current, and make sure your resident meeting notes are current. And I'm recommending that you start thinking about a fixed agenda so that you don't forget something in a resident meeting or a family council meeting, and that you cover all of those things. Okay. As far as training in your quality management plan, training is a big piece of QMP. And so some of the annual ones that you need to do, your food and safety, it's a class and you want to do it yearly. Sometimes some of your people are going to need it more than that, especially when I walk in and find staff working in the kitchen, no gloves, no apron, contaminating everything, going out and serving a resident, no hand washing. Please understand that the staff don't understand it's not their home. And that's been the most common feedback I get is, well, I don't do this in my house. Well, this is not your house, this is our business. And so we've got to hone in on this because I'm just seeing it pretty much across the board. Make sure that everybody's CPR and first aid is up. You're very lucky. Ray, that's on the call with us, just got certified to be a trainer. So she may be willing to help you catch up with your staff. I don't know if she's got capacity to do that yet, but she had let me know that she got certified to be a trainer. Fall management is a big one. And so again, you can't call 911 if a resident falls down unless they're injured and they're going to be transported. And if they refuse to transport, you may get a bill from the fire. South Metro especially is sending bills out. I've already seen them. And so your staff need to know how to safely have somebody roll and get up. And if you have multiple falls, then what interventions did you put into place? How did the doctor interface? Did they order home, physical therapy, occupational therapy? Do they have the right walking aids? Do they have the right shoes? Is their vision changed? Do we have the right things in place for visual? Do we have enough lighting? All of those things. So fall management's a big piece of quality. Also want you to think about your incident reports. There's some great trainings on how to fill out an incident report. So remember, one of the feedbacks we got from the lawyers I talked to is don't put people's names in, put only identification, that you have a master sheet of who those folks are. Especially now that all of a sudden the department's asking for them and absconding with them, which I still have trouble with. What's your emergency plan? So is it updated? So crap, when that tornado hit eastern Colorado and took out those two houses, and I mean literally took them out. What broke my heart was a 67 Dodge, it was a 67 antique car, was totally trashed and upside down on its head. And I don't know if they'll be able to restore it or not, but that caught my eye for sure. But I hadn't thought about tornadoes. And so I asked some facilities that I work with, if you have a tornado come in your area, what's your tornado policies? Where do you go? Where do you shelter at? How do you take care of this? Because you don't have much time when a tornado comes down. It's not like you got an hour to think this through. You got probably less than 10 minutes. So I think it's something else that we're going to have to give some thought to. And I started looking at some of the county websites to see if they had tornado guidance for emergency planning for their county. I had one crack up, so I was looking at one rural county, and they had a hyperlink, and it went to the Hurricane Center for Florida. So I went, oh, okay, this is interesting. We also want to put in our emergency plan, not our emergency plan, but on our quality plan, we want to do some skill training in communication skills. So when I do the person-centered care training, I talk a lot about the difference between telling and asking with our direct care staff, and changing some of that approach. especially in memory care, where we get into telling people because we think they don't have enough capacity to be treated at that level, which they do. So we have to, and same thing in behavioral health. We put on our mom voice or our dad's voice, and we need to put in our business voice. So communication skills is one of those focal points that I want to work on. And then for those of you that do HCBS, I've already started planning it. I'm going to do an HCPS seminar like I do here on the final rules, and including the rights restriction, and then a couple of new things that's been posted that impacts some of you, but not the majority of you. So HCBS is changing. We are going to get some additional funds to actually even make HCBS better. Right now, it looks like the funds from the American Rescue Act is going to be more in maternal, child, and pregnant moms, and I hope so. I think they've done enough pressure and push on our industry, so I'm hoping they don't come up with anything else that we need to respond to right now and let us catch up with what we have in front of us. Whoops, sorry. So you say, well, I'm just the administrator, I can't do everything. Yeah, you're right. It's really hard to do a lot of things. So you got a fairly sizable list. So when I was building this class out, I was trying to think of what are some of the highest priorities you want to put in your quality plan. So remember, we're at the period of the quality plan. So we've built the base and the foundation, and now we're building the plan itself and getting that started. So here are the things that I think if you tackle these, and I just started working yesterday. I was thinking about what tools does administrators need to be successful? And one of them is, I think I'm going to build, and I'll put either on Excel or I'll put it on Word or do both. I haven't quite figured it out, but I'm working with an administrator facility that was willing to help me out with this. And we're putting it on Excel. What do we do monthly? What do we do quarterly? What do we do when we have a change? What do we do annually? So he's helping me, and we're looking at it and see if we can make it as a useful tool. And if I get it to the point that I'm happy with it, for any of you that's willing to help me with the feedback loop, I'll share it with you. And then for those of you that want to wait until we've got it a little better condition, then that's fine too. But here's the topics that I kind of feel like you've got to deal with right now and have an action plan in all these areas. So activities have been boring, and houses are so lifeless. There's no energy in the houses. And so I had a call from a family yesterday, this morning, and their mom AMA'd out and went to an empty apartment because her grandkids couldn't come in without masks. And she just left. And so, they were having a panic attack because they didn't even know she had money to rent an apartment, number one. And number two, there's nothing in it. And so, we don't want that. And so we've got it. That's where I said communication is so important. But we got to get some activities rolling and get life back in the places. Residents should be having a say in the menus. It's not driven by any computer program. Residents' preferences. So if you're not up to date with preferences for food, get your activity director. Get engaged in that, or your dietary director, to start sitting with people and getting their input. You can take the same ingredients and just change them around. It's not going to cost a lot more, and actually it might save you some money when the food's not going in the trash, and residents aren't losing weight. So remember, monthly weights are a requirement. You need to know how your residents are doing on that. Okay. Community engagement. Got to get the community back engaged. So Jefferson County has woke up aging well. Dementia-friendly communities, Arvada, most all of Jefferson County. Denver has woke up through the library system, and Aurora's got the senior centers doing some things. And then I was talking to North Glen yesterday, and they have a big tea club. And so they took tea and scones and a little gift packet and how to get onto Zoom, and had a big tea party because they're opening their doors July 15th, I think she said. So again, we want to get the community back, and you need to figure out how your community is working and what your residents can and cannot do. Safety and security. When's the last time you actually walked the grounds, looked at all your sidewalks, looked at all your surface changes? Are they safe? Can a walker get over them without having to stop, lift up the walker? What do you know, what repairs do you need to make? Do you have some flooring that's worn out, or, you know, is buckling? You know, you need to go in, do a really good look at. One administrator told me she decided that they were going to get all their toilet innards changed and get it all current and put on, off and off, shut off, on and off valves on all their toilets as one of their safety things. So we're putting that in her QMP because she's been having nothing but water problems in her facility. What other safety issues? So remember, guys, cameras are not allowed in the house. I don't know when people start turning them back on, but get them off. The only place you can use cameras is at your front and back door and garage, but you cannot buy, that's against resident rights, have cameras going except over your med cart. So I've been seeing cameras back on, and not kosher, okay? Are your fire drills up to date? Have you tweaked your emergency preparedness plan? And does it still seem to be working? Do you know where you're going to go if you had to leave the facility? Because all the hotels and motels that, you know, normally we would think about are full of homeless people all over the state. So where in the world would you go if you had to? Are your contracts current with your residents? Have they, because remember, those are due annually. Do you have a current resident handbook, including your new resident rights? Is your communication centers up to date? Are they at a print size that residents can read? When I redid that yesterday, I pushed it up. I just wanted it 2 pages, but it wouldn't work at a font that I could read. So unfortunately, it's 3 this year. But you may be able to figure out a way to do it on 2. I just didn't get that accomplished yesterday. But you know, your communication centers have got to be at a font that people you serve can actually see without a magnifying glass. Okay. Is broadband. You are, you know, pretty much pressured by the industry to have broadband and internet available to your residents. And do you have meaningful activities? So TV is not a meaningful activity unless you have a news group or a current events group, or, you know, residents that want to watch TV or like TV as a background noise in their room. That's fine, but it's your community activities. Do they have meaning? Okay. So this is a list of stuff that is under your umbrella and that you're responsible. Do you have to do all the work? No. But do you have to coordinate the work? Yes. All right, so here's a list of your monthly QA. And remember that if you have a mixed bag of vaccinations and non-vaccinations, EM resources demanded weekly. And then for those of you that saw the vaccination or is on the vaccination plan, if you want to join that QIS program, they went over that yesterday, and you're not mandated to do it in our industry. The only reason that I like the dang thing and wish that I had those kind of privileges is that you can go check new staff or new residents for their vaccination documentation. There is over 8 million data entries in the system as of yesterday. So if you have a mixed bag, you keep up your EM resource. If you are fully vaccinated and out of that for the time being, then you can suspend EM resource right now because you will indicate in there that you're 100% until you're not. Okay. But some of the other things that you've got to catch up. You need to do care conference planning. And remember that care conferences are required minimally of once a year for very stable clients. And for the majority of our residents, more than likely at least quarterly, okay? And if you have PACE in your life or Innovage in your life, remember that those are required and that they must send the documentation and you have that in their records, okay? Mars. For God's sakes, if you haven't reconciliated your Mars and make sure that everything is kosher, get in there and do that quickly. Okay. That's the first thing the surveyors, when they come to do their 2-day surveyor, they have one surveyor that does nothing but your med cart for cleanliness, how it is put together, for all of the ointments and stuff to be in a separate container for all your controlled drugs, and then all your OTCs. Remember, you cannot share OTCs of any shape, way, or form. They must be labeled. They must be, you use a Sharpie, a date open, and yellow the expiration date. So again, I don't know where facilities thought that we could share OTCs. That's been gone for a long time. So I saw a facility get fussed out about that. Look at all your communications. Look at your dining services and your kitchen and how it's functioning. Make sure your census sheets are updated monthly, including your flu vaccination dates and your COVID vaccination dates. Really helpful when you have that filled out, and you can just hand that and your staff documentation sheet, and it's got all that information. It just stops the department in their tracks, because again, they're not expecting it. And so when I saw some of the POCs coming across, I changed those tools up so that we could get one step ahead. You're in your QMP side, they're going to look and say, show me your quality program of how, and your incident reports and what you're doing. So again, that could be falls, it could be grievances, it could be a variety of things. So they're looking at that. It could be training. What trainings do you have on the schedule? What trainings and how many people attended? How did you catch up people that didn't attend? Those are the kinds of questions the surveyors are asking. And then all your new employee stuff. So remember, in Chapter 7, please go read the new employee orientation and training guidelines and what they cannot do until they meet all of those milestones. I have not tackled that. I'm hoping maybe even tackle it tomorrow or Monday. And because we've got to kind of change gears and figure out this a little bit, because again, you can't hire somebody and have him take care of residents an hour later. And that's been happening. And so you've got to figure out your staffing and how you're going to function. Let's see, I think I've got all of that. I would highly recommend, guys, for quality, that you have a training of the month. Training doesn't have to be hours long. And a lot of the videos that's on the health department's website, a lot of the videos on CDC, on the dementia, on Tiva Snow. I love Tiva's stuff. By the way, Tiva's coming to Colorado in the fall. They're short. They're 15 to 20 minutes. And so you don't have to waste hours of training. But, again, if you can capture that and keep putting it in their head, that'll be very, very useful. All right, so sad to say, COVID's still sucking the air out of us. I keep thinking this thing will settle down and I don't have to worry about it anymore, but that's not working. And then hot topics, we've been talking about it, okay? And things that we used to do, and I've been doing this industry for a really long time, a great deal of it's not viable anymore. So we have to rethink, regroup, pivot, and make sure you're on the right highway here, okay? Please ask your staff, ask your residents, ask your families, contribute to this, because a lot of times, and I know in my work, you get so focused on what you're doing that you miss things that really are helpful. And when we ask people to come together, they might bring a tidbit or a focus point and bring it to your attention. You go, oh yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. So like one of the things that came up in a conversation earlier today, our residents are really grouchy with each other. And so one of the tools we're going to put in with their kitchen staff and their activity staff, they're going to take a program called Mental Health First Aid for Seniors. It's a free program. And they might learn 2 or 3 tidbits. How do you use different tools when residents are all cranky and they're biting each other's heads off, and they have no tolerance for each other and no patience for each other, and they're just worn out, and their good behaviors have just gone in the trash can. So we're going to see if this mental health first aid program for seniors, since it's free and the training's free, if will give us some tools to help manage the dining room and the activity room better. And so we're going to see what happens with that facility to see if that'll make a difference. Okay. All right. I also think it's time for some reverse psychology. we're always pointing our fingers and shaming our staff and on one side, and then thanking them profusely for working. Across the nation in healthcare, staff is resigning in huge numbers. And so they are so burned out with COVID that they don't have any energy left. I think we've got to find something. I don't have the answers, but I think we've got to find some reverse psychology and try to think of some things and yet hold people accountable for the information. Because the one present you need is you never want your staff to tell a surveyor they were never trained in that. We don't get any information. I have no idea what you're talking about, and throw you under the bus. So one of the things that I've seen happening in surveys is surveyors are calling staff that have quit and asking them why they're leaving, and then writing up the facility for that information. And it's not validated, and they don't know if it's true or not, because the administrator had no documentation of training, had no documentation of a verbal or written warning or anything. And so give yourself a present, but at the same time, we've got to find some fun ways to get all this training down people, get this shift without losing staff and being held hostage to not having enough staff to cover the residents that you choose to take care of. So remember, quality is an art, and CGS, we're committed to this art in this industry. So we're continuing our training. We'll continue these discussions. We continue our coaching. We continue to go out and help wherever we can, and then help people write POCs and make course corrections. So, we're committed to this. And so, at this point, that's our quality crosswalk, is this commitment to try to help these conversations stay focused and going forward. We want to cover topics that matter, and we want to help build a new lifestyle for the industry, so that there's some people in national and state that want to turn all our homes into nursing homes and actually close the small houses and only have nursing homes. And we have to push back by showing that we are we're serving a useful purpose, and a lot of residents live in our facilities, a lot more than live in nursing homes. And so that we're doing a good job, and the department can't quit telling their stories and convincing legislators that we need change, and that this is not a good product for Colorado, which keeps happening. Okay. So last thought, you're on. QMP takes time. Please, guys, put it on your calendar, schedule time out. You're going to need a minimum of 4 hours a week right now, if not more, to get caught up. And then once you're caught up, I think you can calendar in and stay current without drowning. So please don't skimp in this area. It does take time. It takes energy. And again, by the work we're doing, the work that other entities are doing, hopefully we can get ahead of this curve and be on the good side of this thing. Something came to me in the last few days that really spoke to me. I was really surprised. I almost didn't attend a program, and then I was so glad I did. And it's called Core Capital. I'm going to try to bring Core Capital into these discussions because I think it's a great tool for administrators. So every time we look at things, all we can think about, and frequently we get stuck on, is how much is this going to cost me? It's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me money. We can't do this because we're going to lose money, cost money. Core Capital actually is, how do you use everything you got right in your hands right now? All the tools, the software, the paper, the people, and how do you operationalize that and optimize it? So one of the things that they talked about is doing it right matters. Well, we've been talking a lot about that for years, is that we want to do the right thing for the right reasons. So it's not new. And then how do you operate your vision? How do you drive your value into your organization? So you have a full house at all times. You are staffed up. Your reputation's great in the community and in the state's eyes. And so this is because you are using everything at your hand. And so I look at Core Capital, and I kind of look at it as a column or a silo split in 3 parts. And so the top part is values, mission, things we've been talking about in this series of discussions we've been having. And then the second part of your core capital is your residents. Right residents for the right place, doing the right thing with the right physical ability, the right cognition. They're not too, they're not so demented that they need to live in a memory care. Or their hospice care hasn't, we've made so many promises around hospice care. We have to rethink that. Do we have the staffing? Do we have the resources to provide true skilled hospice care? So our second sector of that silo is our residents. And then the third sector of that silo is our staff. And in our staff, the energy we put into it, if we can maintain our staff, we don't have high turnover, then you get a bang for the buck. If you have high turnover, then you get worn out. And so you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So our engagement with our staff is one of our energy areas. So in the state level, there is a whole pile of direct care workers that work in our industry, nursing homes, home care, host homes, all of that, adult days, and they want to unionize. And part of their conversation they've been having with the state, why they want to have a union, is they feel like nobody listens to them or that they don't have a say. And for the communities that the staff is engaged in quality, the staff is engaged in processes and best practices, I don't hear so much noise. And so when staff hop around, and one lady I know that's leading this charge, she doesn't last 6 months in any facility. And so, my comment to state was, I don't see how this can be a leadership person when they don't have their personal experience of how to make a job work for the long run. And so my feedback has not been particularly positive to this, but it's gaining momentum. I tried to attend those meetings, and then they switched up the times to mornings. It's really hard for me to get to them, but I'm going to try to hone in on the next one because I'd like to know what they're talking about. But the big thing is they want to get a union going. So core capital doesn't have to cost you any more than you're currently spending. It's energy, organization, tools, and communication. So my core capital to you guys is we continue to run these classes and discussions, and I've made a list of topics and things that I will bring to the table, and you're always welcome to attend and utilize the things that you can. And if you have questions, you call. So that's our core capital, and that's how we're sewing into you guys. It doesn't cost our agency any more to do this than not do it. And that's what I'm saying to you. The work you're putting in now, think of it as your investment, your energy investment into your business. So in conclusion, again, I'm working on a couple of tools for your level of administrators to try to help you get organized and think about this, so you're not revisiting the things that you've done, but actually attacking the things which you haven't done and mapping it out. So one of them is risk assessment. What's our high risk? And one of the high risks that I see right now, it's so out of date that it's, that you're out of compliance because you're out of date. And it's a high risk. You can shove that down to low risk if you can catch up some of those areas. If it's a high risk, high probability, that's something like fall management, or too many grievances or complaints about the food, or too many grievances and complaints to the state by your families where they're calling and they're complaining about your agency because they're frustrated because they don't understand what's going on. And that happened in COVID, right? So the nursing homes, by direction, had shut their doors and went into protective beehive mode. And we did pretty much the same thing. And then we opened one little door for our hospice in some facilities, but not in all facilities. And so people that were dying, didn't have their loved ones. So that created a lot of noise at the department and at the federal and at the governor's office and legislator's office. And so then we had some legislation try to wiggle its way in to demand that facilities stay open regardless of whether we had a public health order or a pandemic. We were able to kick that out in committee because, again, that didn't make any sense. Sometimes we're going to have to pivot on a dime. And if this stupid Delta variant gets a hold in some counties and really causes chaos, those counties may be shut down again. And so that's on the facilities to protect their residents. And the results could be not be so happy, okay? So high risk, high probability, you need to understand that. What's the chances of it happening? And if it is a good chance, that's called probability, then that pushes it to high risk. Your job, and those of you that are already fully vaccinated, you've already tampered that down from high risk to low risk. And that is a feather in your cap, okay? For those of you that are going to move from paper medical models, starting with your MARS, over to electronic, it's going to be a moderate risk for a while until you get all the bugs worked out, and you have to crosswalk it all the time, make sure that it's working, the orders are working. One of the things I've seen in the electronic MARS that concerns me is that doctors' offices are doing this crazy thing. Instead of sending one order to change one thing, they're sending the whole med list and making the order change in the med list, and it gets missed, or they add a new med in the med list and it gets missed. So you need to know your business practices and how you are going to manage that action step if that is what your providers are doing. I know the pharmacies, a couple of them I've talked to are not happy about this whole sheet thing. They just want the specific change. And so see what happens on that story. So right now that has got my attention. Another moderate risk, for an example, might be something like, we need small social centers on our grounds so that families can visit, and we decrease our risk of grandkids and kids getting other people sick, because we know that children carry, bugs all the time. And flu's in Colorado. We didn't have flu when normally do. It's here right now. And so they've already, our children's is seeing a lot of sick kids with flu. The pediatrician's offices are seeing sick kids with flu, and they're studying that. Whether or not all of our children will vaccinate for COVID, I don't know. I know there's some trials going on. I know a couple people told me their kids have already vaccinated, and I figured out it was a trial over at Children's with Pfizer. But whether or not our young kids are going to be vaccinated, I'm not really clear on that. I know our high school kids, more than likely, 16 and older, will be, because they can't play sports and they can't, be in bands and all that unless they're vaccinated. So one of my own family members that's 16 was pretty upset about it. And then after he thought about it, he decided that he'd rather be with his friends than worry about getting a shot. So he got his shots done. So again, it's, we just got to look at the big picture and the little picture and decide, where do you sit in this? And if you've got everything in order, you're one of the few. I haven't talked to that many administrators that have got everything in order. So please have a great rest of the month. I hope to see you in July. If you need anything that I have, you're welcome to it because you've come. And I will get it to you. And I will be giving a copy of the slide deck. Maria said she would send it out to everybody that attended today, so you'll have them in your educational storage. But remember, there's no stupid question. You're welcome to ask anything you need to do so. So I'm going to go in the chat room and see if there's anything there that I need to address. Yeah, Maggie, but they're doing it. So they have been calling. And again, this comes from employees that have filed complaints on facilities, where I've seen it the most. Rental agreement, yes, the rental agreement is a state form for rent, and it is on the state's, is available from the state, and it's also over at Office Depot, so it's called a rent and lease agreement. So yes, it is there. I'm glad to help with feedback loops. HCBS train. So Stacy, that's in the works. I will probably start those. It all depends on our teaching schedule here and our availability for Zoom. I'll talk to Eileen. We will get it out. I'd like to start the HCBS. So what I'm thinking about, unless I can't pull it off, is that so there's HCBS FAQ 1, 2, and 3s. And what I'd like to do for those of you that do a lot of HCBS work is have one a week. Because they kind of intermingle with each other, and I'm afraid if I go a month at a time, it won't make sense. So we will get that information out as soon as I have a chance to tease that out with Eileen for the HCBS providers, and then the rights restrictions and the lack of what you can do as an administrator on rights restrictions. Okay. Critical incident reports, Kendall, there is a whole training on that in the HCBS website, and if you can't find it, let me know and I will help you get to it. And in the pictures that I put on these slides, you'll recognize it because I did put a photo desktop shot on it so that you can get that. All right, so yes, I will do HCBS. Yes, I will be glad to run any other entities. I've already got July kind of thought out of what I think we should do. And then, yes, the vaccines are damned if you do and damned if you don't. I totally agree. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, so Ray said she's glad to look at seeing if she can provide CPR and first aid certification. It's in the chat, and that will knock out another hole for you because everybody's got to be done. No, Maggie, it's the same one that you took before. So if you've got your certificate and you took the class and you've got that done, then you're in good shape. No. So Jeff, the 10-day quit is only, well, let me clarify that. So there is, the 3-day quit doesn't hold any place. The 10-day quit for not paying their petty portion or their rent part of it, you can do, but you will have, more than likely they'll ignore it, and then you have to go to eviction court, and then that turns into 30 days or more. Sometimes even in Denver, a lot longer than that, because Denver is still kind of not working on evictions a whole lot. But I have been stuck on the 10-day notice, but you do have to give it legally. And so make sure that it meets all mustard on that. If it's behavior, you have to do a behavior agreement. The ombudsman has to be involved in it. And then if they have a case manager with, like, let's say Innovage, or if you're BHO or some other entity, make sure that you have a care conference on it. And then if they violate the behavioral agreement, then you can do the 30-day behavioral. Now, remember in Chapter 7, there's an immediate discharge if they are at risk to themselves or at risk to other residents. So, for instance, in memory care, one of the tougher ones, if you have a resident that sexually assaulted another resident, and they don't have the wherewithal to, be able to keep that barrier up that sex is not okay. Just because they want to have it doesn't mean they can go in one of the ladies' rooms and do so. Or you have two residents get into a fistifight, and that, no matter what you do with this resident, those behaviors come out. I'll tell you frankly, it's mostly low testosterone, but the doctors don't seem to test for that for some reason. And we have made some course corrections on getting testosterone levels up, and the behaviors went away. So then that's an immediate discharge. The problem we're having is the ombudsmen in the new rules for ombudsmen, they're only there to protect resident rights. They could care less about you. So they don't care what your stance is or why you're given it. They do their own decision tree, and they are doing this big thing on resident rights. So for instance, I've been working on a situation for a long time, and the guy financially exploited at least one, if not more, residents in the community for their stimulus checks. And so we were able to prove that, but the ombudsman and the police department out there are giving us nothing but grief. So we're in the middle of the court hearings coming up because we want this guy gone. Gone, bye, thank you very much. You don't belong here. You don't even fit the mold anymore. You can take care of yourself. And holy cow, we've been hitting a dead fence and a dead horse on this one, and it's constant. So back to you, Jeff. Yes, you can do the 10-day quit, but it may not be the end of it. All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, you're welcome, Maggie. Okay, anything else? Does anybody need anything else from this discussion today? All right, so for all of you that attended today, I'll be sending the slides over to Maria in a minute. And again, the door is open if you need something, can't find it, can't figure it out. Open, just get a hold of me, email or call me, and we will help you. So thanks for coming today. Have a great rest of your week. And know Monday that the temperature is only going to be 75 instead of 100. Bye, guys. You're welcome, Erica.